Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Many of you have been asking me for tips and tricks on how to get villagers to move out without using time travel. So today we're going to be showing you the best tips that I can provide to get the villager that you want to move out in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now we're going to go with the most important trick first, and then we're going to get into some more detailed stuff here. Now that is the thought bubble. So this thought bubble can be a couple different things, but villagers will only want to leave when this thought bubble pops up. Now there's one very important trick to take note of, especially if you're not time traveling when this thought bubble pops up. So I know for a fact that Sprinkles wants to leave right now, but I'm going to be showing you what you should be doing when you see this thought bubble pop up on a villager. So we're just going to check this real quick, and we're going to make sure that it is in fact Sprinkle wanting to leave, because we want to transfer this thought bubble to another character within the game, and more specifically a character that we want to leave. So she's thinking hard, and she wants to move off this island. Now that we have confirmed that this thought bubble is in fact her wanting to leave, we're going to immediately close the game, because we do not want the game to save us having had that conversation. We're going to get into why in just a second. Now that we've loaded back the game, you can see that Aurora, or Sprinkles here, is actually still debating leaving. Now what we want to do is just do not talk to her ever again through today. This is going to be her move out day, so do not complete that conversation whatsoever. So stay as far away from the villager that you don't want to leave, because what happens is if you completed this conversation, whether you told this villager to stay or told this villager to leave, that thought bubble is going to go on a cooldown. So if you want to kick out a certain villager and you're not time traveling, putting this thought bubble on cooldown to have a villager leave is going to take it a very long time for you to kick out the villagers that you want. So it's very important that you just ignore the thought bubble, and then the next day you have a very high chance of that thought bubble moving to a new character. And we're going to showcase that with time travel right now, because knowing all of this information can obviously be taken advantage of with time traveling. But obviously, all you have to do now, if you're not time traveling, is wait till the next day, and this thought bubble should transfer to a new villager. So we time traveled one day forward. If you didn't time travel, then obviously you'd have to wait until the next day for this to happen. And we've got Zucker now wanting to move out today. So what I highly recommend doing, if you're going to go through this process and you have villagers move in, whether automatically or just some villagers that you just don't like anymore, the best case scenario for doing this particular method without time traveling, and even with time traveling, is interact with the villagers that you do like, interact with the ones that you want to keep around, but do not whatsoever interact with the villagers that you don't want to keep. That'll ensure that the thought bubble has a higher chance of moving to one of the villagers that you want to get rid of, rather than a villager that you want to keep, like Zucker here. But the rules that I follow with the way that I play the game right now until I get my full cast of characters that I do want, is I don't interact with anybody. The only times I really interact with them is like during a stream, or if I'm going through this process of kicking villagers out. Now, say you had one particular villager, say we wanted to specifically kick out Raymond, for instance. We would interact with every other villager, not a ton, but enough to keep them entertained. Give them a present or something if you need to, but do not interact with Raymond whatsoever. That'll increase the chance of this bubble moving onto the character that you don't want to go. Now, do keep in mind that when you're doing this thought bubble transfer process, some days it might not transfer to anybody. Like some days it might be queued up for a villager that just has no interest in leaving whatsoever, or they're inside and they're crafting that day. So you might have to check at a different time of the day or something like that. There's a couple of variables that will make the thought bubble not transfer, but more often than not, it will continue to transfer through those villagers that have the opportunity to leave. Now, I know some of you out there are going to be concerned that if you don't talk to your villager at all, then maybe they'll move out on their own. I do want to let you know that villagers cannot move out on their own. You have to talk to them. But knowing that these thought bubbles go on cooldowns, look at Cube being adorable. Now that we know that these thought bubbles are on cooldown, similar to how the campsite works, we need to make sure to not interact with them whatsoever. You will not have villagers accidentally move out. Although I have noticed that Saturdays during the KK Slider events, you'll have a lower chance of a thought bubble appearing. I don't exactly know if that's for a specific reason. I don't exactly know why that is, but on Saturdays, I seem to almost never get any thought bubbles. I'm not saying it's impossible. I've definitely had it happen, but more often than not, you won't see a thought bubble transfer on a Saturday. But we do need to get into a couple additional tricks that we can use to help this process further a little bit. So aside from just completely ignoring your villagers, there's a couple things you can do to help their neglect factor. One of them we discussed previously, which is fencing their house. So you can basically surround their house with fences, and occasionally that villager will get locked outside of their house and they won't be able to interact with you or other villagers, which helps their neglect and sadness factor. And then the next thing that you're going to want to do is you can put trash and stuff outside of it. Now, we don't have any data mining information that suggests that putting trash outside does anything, but I have on many occasions when I've done this, had villagers comment that the reason they're leaving is because their house or their area is dirty and covered in trash. So it does seem to make them unhappy. Now, the fencing trick, they won't always get stuck in the fences. They can escape. The game will spawn them outside of the fences and stuff like that. It only helps the times that they actually get stuck in, which might not be often. Sometimes the villagers will always get spawned inside their fences and they won't be able to interact with anybody. But putting trash outside of their house, like say we actually wanted to get rid of Raymond, we'd put trash outside of his house, and over time, that'll affect him and it'll increase the chances of that thought bubble transferring to Raymond. Oh, nice. Another great way of kicking villagers that you just really, really hate out is when you get a campsite visitor. So we actually got one the next day when we time traveled. We got a new campsite visitor, and I have a whole video on how these campsites work, and I highly recommend checking it out because it's incredibly useful if you're not time traveling, and even more so, obviously, if you are. But you can actually hone in on very specific villagers to bring into your island. What's great about the campsites is even if you don't get like the most amazing campsite visitor, you can actually utilize the mechanics of the campsite to kick out a villager that you truly just hate and just want replaced no matter what. So definitely check out that video. I'll leave it in the description. But basically, if it selects somebody that you don't want to leave, you just crash the game and then continue through the process until it selects the villager that you do want to leave. So that's going to be an added benefit of knowledge when going through this particular process. But it doesn't help you out if you're just trying to open a spot so you can do some Nook Mile hunting. Oh, we got a penguin too. I could totally kick out somebody with this penguin. That would be perfect, because then I would be able to make my whole hashtag penguin island. I know I got Apollo, and we're about to stream. You know what? Maybe what I'll do is I will cycle this through until Apollo wants to leave, and we'll allow somebody to pick up Apollo. I'm not 100% sure, though. I don't know. So far on Saturday and Sunday, we haven't gotten a thought bubble transfer. I think we've seen every villager that is currently outside of their house not crafting. I haven't seen a thought bubble inside, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. Oh no, poor Rold is sick. That's why he's inside with his popsicles. Now, I do want to mention your newest villager can be kicked out, but it is always going to be significantly harder. Oh, Beardo wants to leave again. I actually have his amiibo card now, and I think since we're about to stream, I'm actually going to let Beardo go, which makes me super duper sad. But we do need a spot open, and I know people are going to want Apollo, so I want to make sure I give him away. But the thought bubble transfer does work. As you saw, it doesn't happen every day, but as long as you don't put it on cooldown, it's going to start cycling through your villagers. Now, if you do encounter a villager that is more difficult to kick out than usual, then you need to figure out what's going to be the straw that breaks that villager's back. There's a couple of different methods that I do. Sometimes, if I have a particular trouble with a villager, I'll move their house, and that sometimes triggers it. It could be coincidence. I don't officially know. We don't have any data mining on any of this stuff, so it's all just been experimenting. I'll do the trash bags. I'll do the fences. I'll also use pitfall traps, because that makes them super upset without having to talk to them. I've also done the just talking to them a ton until they get super sick of you thing. So there's a couple different things, and if just ignoring them doesn't seem to be working for you, it should. Sometimes it takes longer than usual to get that to work, but that is definitely the method that will eventually work no matter what. But sometimes if you talk to villagers or do other things to them, it could help get them to move, and sometimes it'll keep them around. But you're going to have to experiment with those hard to kick out villagers. But definitely knowing that things are on cooldowns and that you can kind of get things to transfer like this not only helps with not time traveling, but also really helps those that want to time travel. Because now, once you get a thought bubble, all you need to do is just move day at a time until it lands on somebody that you actually want to kick out. But I do hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm going to say farewell to Beardo here. So we can get some Fs in chat. Some love for Beardo. He's been our longest resident on the island. And we're going to invite him back with an amiibo card at some point. Probably very, very soon. We're probably going to replace Apollo with him or bring him onto our Southern Hemisphere island. But for at least a day or two, we are going to be Beardo-less. It makes me super sad, but I do want to be able to hunt more villagers and give villagers away to the community. And I need a spot open, and Beardo's been wanting to leave for a while, so I think we're going to bring him to the Southern Hemisphere island. Maybe we'll get him Blue Bear as a girlfriend or something like that. Let me know what you guys think we should do with Beardo in the future. But I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.